Have you ever wondered how a banana duct taped to a wall sold for $120,000? Or why worthless JPEG files sell online for millions? We often talk about how when money is bad at being money, other things become money. And that is definitely true for art. Broken money is a problem that ripples out into all aspects of culture and society. Looking at how it's affecting art is a great way to really conceptualize this problem. When money takes no effort to produce, then the quality of things that we make to earn that money naturally declines over time. Broken money forces creators to think about volume instead of quality. When we deprioritize beautiful things being made with care in the real world, gradually our real world becomes less and less beautiful and a less inspiring place. Our world starts to reflect this disposable everything economy that results when you have money that is constantly losing its value. The Bitcoiners care a lot about quality, and Bitcoin is money that takes effort to produce. And so to buy something with Bitcoin, you're going to want to be buying quality. A lot of people in Bitcoin think that in the future, Bitcoin can help society reprioritize building great stuff, sort of trigger the second renaissance of great art and architecture. You're listening to The Block Reward. This is the show where we help you understand Bitcoin without you needing to be obsessed with it. I'm Scott Dedels, and I'm the founder and CEO of Block Rewards. And part of our mission in bringing Bitcoin to the workplace is helping people understand how it's going to help them. And to dive into this topic this week, we're joined by Canadian Bitcoin artist Madex. Madex is a talented mixed medium artist and a longtime Bitcoiner with a lot to say on the topic. So if you're ready to hear about how Bitcoin fixes art and by extension improves the world around us, then stick around. This one's a doozy. All right, welcome to another episode of the Block Reward podcast. We are going to be talking about how fiat money has ruined art today with Madex. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Maybe just before we get into our conversation, for our listeners who are new to Bitcoin and may not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm the creative director of Bull Bitcoin, and I'm a artist and designer. I create a lot of work that's inspired by Bitcoin and Austrian economic principles and capitalist principles. So that's the foundation of my artistic work, my design work, and then also the brand anchoring work that I've done for Bull Bitcoin. Bull Bitcoin is an exchange running in Canada. We're Bitcoin only, self-custody, and we just launched in Costa Rica. We're operating there now and expanding further internationally. We're a company that prides ourselves on sort of setting the industry standard for Bitcoin practice and Bitcoin ethics, kind of pioneered the whole maximalism concept. And that keeps me busy. So I'm just another person out there working to send Bitcoin signal and share the message of what we're doing and the hope that it'll change things and bring back a sort of new Renaissance era that we are desperately deprived of currently with the fiat economics at play.
Absolutely. I think it's worth mentioning, Bull, for people who aren't familiar. I've heard Bull Bitcoin described by other Bitcoiners as a hyper-Bitcoinization company, which is just super cool. What does that even mean?
Yeah, well, what we do at Bull Bitcoin is we enable a Canadian citizen currently, eventually someone in Costa Rica and in all the nations that we expand to, but specifically like our proof in Canada, we enable Canadians to exist without a bank account if they chose to. So thanks to Bull Bitcoin's operations, you can live in Canada without a bank account and running and living entirely on Bitcoin only. So we do that by processing basically any bill, payment, and transaction in the entire country that's possible. You can pay your taxes with Bitcoin. You can pay your utilities bills with Bitcoin, anything you can think of. You also have the ability to send money via Interact e-transfer, which is kind of like our Venmo, I guess, in Canada, to anybody using Bitcoin. We just allow you to seamlessly interact with the fiat system using only Bitcoin, and then also without anybody on the other end receiving those payments, knowing that you've used Bitcoin to, say, pay your tax bill or pay your utility bill. So that's, I guess, as close as you can get to hyper-Bitcoinization. If you're someone who only has Bitcoins and you don't want to have a fiat bank account, we make that possible. And that's the service that we're trying to bring international, because obviously that's a major step in hyper Bitcoinization, is exiting the fiat banking system entirely. And obviously, until we have like a circular Bitcoin economy, it's very difficult to do. We still have to interact with fiat. And so that's what we're servicing.
100%. I think that the idea of that is pretty daunting, but I also think that there's more people doing that than the average person might imagine. And so you guys would probably know this better, and without sort of giving off like any sensitive secret customer information, like how many people in Canada totally exist within Canada without using Canadian dollars?
A lot. I mean, Canada has been way ahead in a lot of ways with Bitcoin. I guess primarily because our kind of regulatory basin was very slow on kind of spooling up and catching up with everything that's been happening. So for a number of years, Canada was just the best Bitcoin environment on earth. And that's why we see a lot of major players in the Bitcoin space having backgrounds in Canada. There was a lot of freedom to create, build, and transact with Bitcoin here for a long time. It's only kind of over the last couple of years that regulations and bureaucracy has kind of started getting in the way. So Bitcoin really got a good footing here in Canada, right in the beginning. I mean, right down to like in Kelowna, there was, a store you could walk into, a brick and mortar store you could walk into and buy Bitcoins. In, 2013, there was one in Calgary. They were all across the country. There's a lot of people in Canada that were freely able to say buy, 10,000 Bitcoins without kind of any interference or any, issues from legacy finance. And I guess I think also just a lot of things in Canada, you just kind of you're thinking in a more sovereign way, because we kind of have like a much more oppressive state of government up here. So we're looking, the United States believes it has a lot of freedoms. And so I think people are just kind of not really as quick to accept ideas like Bitcoin because they're under the illusion that they don't really need it. Whereas in Canada, for a long time, I mean, it's been very difficult for people. And I think the best year of all time to have been acquiring Bitcoin was in 2015. And, 2015, Trudeau gets in, we're heading for a socialist hellhole dictatorship. I think the writing was on the wall that, our currency was going to fail. Just a lot of factors in the environment made Canada an ideal space to kind of become a Bitcoiner. And then as a result, we have Bull Bitcoin, which is some of the best Bitcoin practice services on earth. And then we also have, many other companies out there that are based in Canada, or at least have Canadian founders, because we were just early, I guess.
Yeah, Canada seems to punch way over its weight class in terms of the number of Bitcoiners, prominent Bitcoiners out there. It's funny you mentioned that Kelowna brick and mortar Bitcoin store is like my personal Bitcoin pain story, because in 2013, when that store opened, I was literally living right across the street from it. And in the basement of that building was a coffee shop. And I used to get a coffee there every day. And I can recall, like in 2013, 2014, looking at this Bitcoin sign in the window and just, that was my first opportunity to have a serious chance. Like, and everyone's thinking, well, what if I bought it at $1? But genuinely, I used to stare at this Bitcoin store in the window and have my coffee, and just like it just whooshed right over my head. And who knows where I would be today? Probably not doing this podcast, but you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve. I'm really curious about Bitcoin in Costa Rica, and you were just there, so maybe what's the different? What was your take on Bitcoin adoption and bull in Costa Rica?
Well, it was incredible to see. I mean, it definitely is very pioneering to go there and kind of be involved in a community where it seems like everybody is accepting Bitcoin, which is excellent. Even if they're not accepting Bitcoin, thanks to full Bitcoin services, you can pay in Bitcoin, and then it'll convert to SimPay, which is the payment processing system that Costa Ricans use down there, which is very cool. So my entire trip, I was able to live off of Lightning. And then there's so the wallet app, Bitcoin Jungle, that's been built down there is excellent. It's very well done. Has a lot of educational tools built into it, which is pretty cool to see from a wallet. And it's a product just designed for the people who are living in Costa Rica that want to use Bitcoin to transact and interact with, the markets around them. And what they've established down there is really incredible. Just I guess one after another, kind of word of mouth, person to person, an entire network of people who are starting to learn about Bitcoin, study Bitcoin, understand Bitcoin, and accept it for payment for goods and services that they offer has certainly been developed. And yeah, that's very exciting to see. I mean, we just had in Calgary this local sats market, which is kind of like a small scale version of what I saw in Costa Rica, which is pretty cool. But, actually using Bitcoin for, one of its primary intended purposes, which is, to transact with and being able to kind of get everything you need is puts you in a very forward thinking kind of state of mind. And then what I think is neat is anyone who visits in Costa Rica can kind of see this, like it really just was, a handful of guys approaching vendors and kind of talking to them about Bitcoin and explaining kind of all the things that you and me probably quickly and readily understand, but explaining it to these different merchants and then kind of onboarding them one by one. And that's sort of, I guess, the kind of like, Mormon door-to-door work that can be done in any community. And so that's kind of what I was most excited about, was just that, like, okay, what's happened here in Bitcoin jungle is definitely repeatable around the world. It's definitely scalable. And all it takes is basically a group of people who are willing to spend Bitcoin. So I've kind of always been a spendle mentality over the hodl mentality. I'll take every opportunity I can to spend Bitcoin. Like whenever I interact with a listing site, like say, Craigslist or Kijiji we have in Canada, I'm always offering to pay for whatever I'm looking for with Bitcoin. And I'm just to kind of have a touch point that's like, hey, like, this is a real money and, I'd like to use it as a real money if you'll accept it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to basically build that kind of back and forth, like just markets. And that's what I saw in Costa Rica, was just an extremely successful implementation of a Lightning wallet and of, I guess, the hard work of just talking to people one at a time and sharing with them kind of our vision for the future.
Cool. Yeah, we had a couple weeks back an episode with the CoinOS guys, the Lightning developers, and they have this really awesome story about most of their businesses in Canada, except for one town in Brazil that has like 300 merchants using their Lightning wallet, just because somehow one person got a hold of it and it just like mycelium spread throughout the entire community. And there are examples like this popping up everywhere. And the market in Calgary was a great start in Canada too. I think for Canadians, it's definitely a little bit more, let's say it's a little bit less real for people, I think, because you can't go into coffee shops like in your corner neighborhood probably and pay for Bitcoin today. Not that matters, but there is some kind of like psychological element of the spendle part. It is important in terms of like changing people's perception of what Bitcoin does.
Yeah. And I think it's just like something in the media. It's something in the media that's like difficult to grasp and understand, I think, just when it's coming at you through like headlines or, whatever kind of buzzwords and whatnot. But then when you actually have someone who's like, hey, I have this and I'll give it to you in exchange for your goods and services, it's a total kind of grounding realization for the person. So, it kind of makes it very real. I also found this in a lot of ways with people who would visit me and they knew I was into Bitcoin, but then they would see like mining hardware that I was operating and running. And that kind of gave them like a touch point that like, this isn't just like a collection of random headlines in the media, it's like a real functioning ecosystem. And so, I hope we see a lot more of these kind of market ideas grow and these just kind of bootstrapped economies where it's like, okay, well, if we're all working and we're trading the Bitcoin back and forth between each other, over time, it's like as the value of the Bitcoins go up, it's sort of like like if I pay like a very good friend of mine in Bitcoin and then Bitcoin goes up 50% overnight, it's like that wealth is still sort of in the family. It's even though it's not my gain, it's my friend's gain, right? So I think about that sort of in the communities. Like if you have a pool of Bitcoins kind of, switching hands and exchanging around, like as number goes up, it's kind of like the whole community is sort of becoming wealthy. So it's like your exposure to Bitcoin's upside is just much greater if it's shared within a community than just kind of hodling it yourself, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. One of the phrases that came from a pleb at an event at Bitcoin Rodeo in Calgary last summer was "prosperity is a shared endeavor," which is a slogan that we use at Block Rewards, and I just love the concept because it really is a foundational sort of intrinsic component of how and why Bitcoin works and attracts new people all the time. Yeah, let's. We're here today to have this conversation about art, and but before we dive into it, I want to start by asking a question I ask every week, which is different for every person who answers it. But curious to hear your thoughts on what is Bitcoin.
I think most importantly, Bitcoin is accountability and personal responsibility, and I think it's the core engine to being able to interact with the world with a strong foundation. It's the basis of kind of individuality and that sort of like master of independence that allows you to become interdependent with others. So the sort of saying that, you can't really look after other people until you have your own kind of house in order, your own life in order. I think Bitcoin is just kind of the first step to having that strong foundation. And in order to have a strong Bitcoin foundation, you need to have a very healthy relationship with accountability and responsibility. And I think that when I look out into the world, all the people that I admire for whatever kind of macro reasons, the real kind of core of it is their radical sort of self-responsibility and their self-reliance and accountability to themselves. And I think that once you onboard Bitcoin and you kind of start into the journey of understanding it and learning more about it, the inevitable outcome for every person on a long enough timeline is that they become a sovereign individual.
Yeah, I love that. I love that answer. The personal responsibility thing is one of my favorite core aspects of Bitcoin culture. And it's also why I think it's such an interesting thing for employers to be thinking about starting to have their staff earning Bitcoin at work, because building a culture of personal responsibility while you're running a business, to me, is probably just about the single most important thing you would want to have people value in terms of like actually running a real business. And but it applies to society too. And I think this is kind of a decent segue into the conversation about art, because this notion of being able to produce money that requires no effort to produce has a disastrous trickle effect through basically every aspect of society. And one of the really niche ways that it bubbles up that is actually in front of our eyes at all times is what it's done to art. And this is actually how I first became exposed to you. So this conversation was sort of inspired by a conversation that I saw you have with Dave Bradley. So some credit to Dave, who was on our show a few months back. And let's just talk a little bit about, for our listeners who are still trying to make sense of what sound money does, could you describe at 50,000 feet, like the problem between fiat money and art?
Well, the main thing is that fiat money just strips art entirely out of everything. You're working in this area where you want to build as fast as possible, and you don't care about the longevity, and you don't care about sort of the 4 and 5 dimensional aspects of whatever you're building, because there's no time to think about those. Those are difficult areas in any project to kind of, you really have to, for example, like live in the building before it exists that you're creating, like in the example of architecture. And that's time consuming and it costs money. And it's when the incentives are lined up to basically get the money as fast as possible, because the money is just melting ice, it's just evaporating in our hands, then it becomes important to complete the project right away and to spend as little as possible while creating it, because you do not have a concern for that project to be around in 10 years or 50 years or 100 years. You just have a concern on making the sales targets before the money that you have that you're operating on currently goes to zero. So thus, like, everything is just stripped out. Everything beautiful is stripped out. And they've kind of tried to package up to us in this like minimalism philosophy and idea. And like minimalism has a place and it can be very beautiful, but it's an art form in itself. And a drywall box is not minimalism. That's just cost savings. And this, like, the horrible effect that this has is it just kind of destroys people's will to become or exceed or kind of reach beyond. It really kills like all the magic in the world. And definitely, like, since 1971, we've just kind of seen the magic gut out of everything. And this is a big push, I think, from kind of all the collectivist players. They don't really want us kind of believing in anything higher or aspiring to reach higher. The collectivist kind of wants to elevate the lowest level of society and have everybody cater to that, versus kind of the individualist wants to elevate like the greatest members of society and have everything kind of reach for that. So I think like pretty back in the past, every single project in the eras where money wasn't broken, an artist or a creative, and either as a separate person involved in the project or just as a byproduct of being extremely skilled in whatever the discipline was, would always have, the artist was just incredibly important to the project. So when considering building anything, everybody was looking like very far into the future, had a long time horizon, and they wanted whatever was built to just have value over time and to inspire future generations and to kind of recreate and duplicate creative types. And that just, we don't have anymore because, it's expensive. And if we need an immediate sale, there's no point into reaching into the future.
What you're talking about is not a small thing at all, because like you said, speaking to this idea of the imagination of society, like the art really reflects the undercurrent of what's happening in culture. And it's a way to peer into the spirit of a society, right? And today we're peering into a banana that's duct taped to a wall. And this is kind of the example of what it says about the current state of things. I'm less of an art history buff. But if we were thinking about like as art kind of progressed through pop art in the 50s and like the problem with money accelerating, what were the trends in art? Are there moments where there was noticeable shifts in popular art that stand out to kind of how we got to today, like as the parallel, the money problem?
When money is broken, when money breaks, art starts to take on some of the characteristics of value of money. Primarily a store of value, which as Bitcoiners we can all understand. If an artist creates a painting, there can only be one of that painting. It can't be duplicated or replicated, and then thus, there you could argue that there is a value to it because it's one of one. It can't be found anywhere else in the world. And then if there's specifically demand for that thing that there's only one of, then obviously the prices go up. So we definitely saw like an acceleration of the whole using art as a store of value, like as money broke. And then at the same time, because that started happening as a way to kind of escape inflation, it also became clear that art was just a very flexy way to show off your wealth. And so at the same time of the actual kind of, legitimate reason of like, okay, I need to like hedge my bets against inflation. Also, it kind of became a way to kind of show off like how wealthy you were. And so the demand in the art worlds just kind of exploded. And at the beginning of like all the kind of modern art that we sort of laugh at today, like the scribbles and things like that, there actually was like, in my opinion, like a Jackson Pollock, it's very intriguing and interesting and beautiful to me, even though it's just paint splattered on a canvas. But that kind of specifically comes from the time that it was made and just like the success that kind of he was able to have from that. And, it's just like there's a lot of firsts in that era. There's a bunch of other artists in that kind of era that were just experimenting with things. But then what happened is that demand exploded and there was only a handful of actually very creative and talented artists. It's actually extremely difficult to find a creative person who is in touch with kind of what's cool and what's trendy, but also has like great vision and great creative abilities, and also kind of the ability to sort of trend set and like be a fountainhead for sort of artistic vision. These sorts of people are extremely difficult to find. And when demand started exploding, the galleries and the dealers and the auction houses, they kind of ran out of suppliers. And so they just started inventing the supply. And this is where we see like the real degradation of art, because it went from like people that were out there that just because of the fate of the universe were creating kind of interesting, beautiful, unique, or kind of like unconventional ways of doing things or different ways of looking at things, into kind of like, okay, now we have to manufacture this. And that's when we started shifting to the entire paragraphs describing, why a piece of art is art, something that should be valued. So, these galleries and dealers and stuff, they would just find guys off the street that were doing whatever. They would buy up a huge batch of this street artist's work for nothing. Then they'd write like an autobiography on this person and then publish it throughout their galleries. And then they would kind of suddenly discover supplies of the work, and they were all colluding together to kind of pump the prices on things. And then also at the same time we had like legitimate like fiat multimillionaires and billionaires that were trying to escape inflation, looking to find places to put it. And one of the best places you can store value is something that's just scarce and in demand and one-to-one. And so, they started competing with each other to buy different pieces, driving up prices. Galleries and auction houses would take no-name artists and then they would trade the art between each other back and forth several times over to kind of create a long buyer's history that was sort of entirely false. And then they would bring something to an auction house with kind of like a history of having been sold 15 times, and every time the price went up, 20% or whatever. But really it was all just kind of insider art trading. A massive amount of opportunity in this whole art world because it's just entirely unregulated and there's no interference really at all. And kind of everything is sort of plausible deniability. And so, for the purposes of like laundering money or kind of scamming, inflating values, all these kind of fiat finance games that can be played in, say traditional markets or just on the street, like straight up scamming can be done in the art world, like very effectively and with kind of a lot of class and finesse, because these guys have all these sort of suave brands because they're able to pull together so much capital and kind of make themselves look like that. So, but yeah, once, and then now I think people are kind of waking up to it, being like, well, okay, now they sort of way oversupplied the market, and because of the broken money incentives behind it, it's still like a driving force. But I think like on a public level, everyone's kind of waking up to like, okay, this is just a lot of splattered sort of canvas, like something's got to be not quite right with it. But, I don't think it's really going to stop. It's extremely difficult to find talented creators. And if you need to service a market demand, like you're not going to wait around for, the next like Tesla to be born. You got to just kind of make it up.
Yeah, I guess I sort of think about it like art. Art is a great example of it. It shows the problem of broken money really in both directions. Like on the one hand, I think about like the evolution of sort of mass-produced art that's arrived at the end state of kind of Walmart art, where everyone can get this generic canvas paintings now. And so that's happening on one side. And then on the other side of it, the spectrum is what you talked about with this, sort of like classical fictitious example of artist paints a canvas red, someone buys it for $20 million, and now they have an asset that they can insure for $20 million and take use it as collateral to take out a loan, and there are all kinds of mechanisms. So it's yeah, lots of ways that the broken money manifests in reality in the art world.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most famous cases, because somebody made a great meme, is just you have just whatever, the red canvas, like you said, and then you have it appraised by your buddies that make sure it gets a very high appraisal. So it's worth like 25 million. And then you donate that to a museum. And then you've just created a $25 million tax write-off for your donation. So this is like heavily played a lot. And yeah, for whatever reason, I mean, that there's that line that's like, it's a big club and you're not in it, but it's just been allowed to continue ongoing. And I mean, it's very, very difficult to argue otherwise. And I think that's why it's so successful in these sort of deceptive financial games, because I mean, if a market's willing to pay for it, then that's what the price is. So the market sets the price. It's hard to argue that. And then if every player in the market is kind of on your side, then everybody's going to work together to kind of preserve the illusion.
That scam is the basis for the sort of fictional value of NFTs, right? Where the only important difference is with the sort of pseudo-anonymity with an NFT is that you could actually create it and then sell it to yourself. So now you have something you've created out of thin air and you've sold it to yourself for a certain price, so that you still have both the money that you paid for it and now you have something that's worth, in theory, whatever you said you paid for it.
Yeah. And then you sell it to a greater fool. That's their whole game, basically.
Let's talk a little bit about NFTs. I'm sure
that's the game in the art world, man. I mean, the art world fully.
Well, I'm sure we have listeners who are learning about this stuff, and NFTs are tangential to this space. Like you're an artist in Bitcoin in this space. Like, what's the TLDR on NFTs?
NFTs are an outright blatant scam. You'll never get your money out. And that's what I was just about to say there previously, is that like the whole fine art world is set up to target and take advantage of insecurities in wealth. And I think that the whole sort of NFT world is set up as well in the same way to kind of attack and poach people in that are in a position of wealth, but then also obviously they're peddling these to the masses as well. It's really like, it's just ICOs repackaged. It's kind of just selling the dream that, your digital token that you have will 100x in value. And then you'll be just like, the guy with the Lambo and the Gucci bags that, sold it to you. So it's definitely predatory. And I mean, like with ICOs, what we saw was the scammers used all their kind of buzzword soup to hook in major corporations and have like General Motors be like, okay, we're interested in like looking at this, blockchain technology, and seeing, if it is something that can help our business. And then the scammers would take that, like email with General Motors and broadcast it. Partnership with our shitcoin is imminent, and GM partners with like Solana in like experiment. It was all packaged into these kind of rough headlines or misleading headlines. And then eventually, like the corporate world kind of became wise to the whole thing, that it is a scam and that like blockchain is just like a way for a snake oil person to receive some massive consulting fee to talk to you about like inefficient databases. So they all just shut it down. So then these scammers kind of run their like trick of like, okay, let's get like a major corporate brand to pair with us. That ended. So they needed a new mark. And where the mark came from just happened to be the creative arts, which in my opinion is quite dark, much darker than corporations, targeting corporations to kind of be the sort of, patsy for the scam. Most artists are really going through a difficult time, and kind of any step that they could take to get ahead or gain some traction, is definitely considered and respected. And, so the scammers basically just went after creative brands and got a lot of like established artists, musicians, actors, all kinds of like artistic ventures to kind of basically like cross promote, like co-brand brand, with their NFT project and scam people using basically an established and trustworthy brand name. So, with ICOs, it was like, okay, buy our token because Amazon is going to use our token and then our token is going to be so wealthy. And then with NFTs, it was like, okay, buy these individual tokens because, chain smokers and I are doing this collaboration and, 1 billion people listen to the chain smokers. So obviously the NFT is going to go up in value. And man, I mean, like we saw just in the and that's what's gonna come out of this whole ordinal thing as well. It's like men lie, women lie, like the numbers don't lie. And you just look at kind of the NFT, the finances of any of these NFT peddling companies from the launch to today. That's what, that's a glimpse into the future of what we'll see with the whole ordinals thing as well. I think it was like that OpenSeas one. They did something like, a couple $1 billion or something insane, like, or maybe it was like several hundred million. And then, like last quarter, they did like 600K, something like that. Right. So these things are just smash and grabs. And, unfortunately, like when money is failing, people are in desperate situations. And when you're desperate, that's when you're willing to take on sort of big risks, like popping your life savings into a fucking stupid ordinal or, into an NFT or something. It's like people are just struggling so hard right now that it's like, we need like these big wins. Like, I think a good like metric is like just lottery ticket sales. I think that like, if you're buying lottery tickets, you're at like a point where like you just have lost kind of hope. Really. I mean, that it's like an exit, like, it's inefficient, like it's never going to happen, but it's like buying the tickets as just like sort of something to like help mitigate the stress of like not being able to pay your bills. So I think that that's what pushes people into like making a lot of these buying decisions, whether it's these ICO projects, NFT projects, or kind of anything else. And that's why I get like quite upset about it. Like right now, like I've been pretty vocal about targeting ordinals and being like, this is bullshit. And it's not like, I have no issue with miners making crazy amounts of money. That's good for them. If more capital can end up in the hands of well-meaning Bitcoiners, then, I think that's a great thing. If we want to like play around and like do this, in my opinion, it's like fully spam and has no place being there. But whatever, you want to have some fun and make these things, okay. But it's these big pushes from like Bitcoin Magazine and other actors trying to resell what they're all just lying to themselves. They inherently know that they're scamming. And that's like the hardest part. It's like where the resale happens, where you're saying like, this is something that is going to go up in value. This is something that's going to make you rich. This is like a cutting edge opportunity that like you don't want to miss behind, or you don't want to leave behind. Like it's that whole like peddling where it's just like really dark and, in my opinion, like completely unforgivable. I think just selling a false hope, doesn't matter who you are or what you claim your beliefs are. If you're pushing something to someone as like a way out, as an exit, because that's why anybody's willing to buy these things, is because they're like hoping to have like some positivity come into their life by escaping the struggle of like overbearing financial pressure from collapsing fiat. And if you're like selling them, a way out and it's false, like it's a dead end, that's where my respect for you completely ends.
Yeah, it's preying on people, and I think you just did an awesome way of capturing the entire grift. It's really tragic, because I think you need to be. It takes time to sift through all this information, right? And so there's a reason why they catch people. And they catch our new fresh crops of people every, just long enough for the last round of everyone to have forgotten and got excited again. And I guess that's kind of what's going on right now with ordinals. There was one yesterday that sold for $40,000 or something. And it's probably exactly what I was describing, where you fake, right? It's fake.
Yeah. It's to be able to sit there and say you're a positive force for Bitcoin by peddling any variation of garbage. And like these guys that are behind this, like they're not stupid guys, they're smart. Like they know what they're doing. And I think that's like just really what's so upsetting about it. Like Bitcoin Magazine built a position of trust over a number of years. They're in a position of authority. They're well respected, well known. There's a huge long history in Bitcoin there. And I guess it's just more important to them to they just leverage that position of trust to kind of take advantage of, people who are out there that don't know any better. And, like all of us, like you right now, myself, everybody that's kind of like working to build, I guess, a brand within Bitcoin, like we're all kind of building a position of trust, and, we're building a name. And, I was raised that like my name is my name. And, when you make a mistake, you got to be ready to own it. And, you got to be honest and interact with people honestly. And you got to, look out for what's best for kind of everybody around you as well as your own, And I just think that like using a position of influence to just make petty sales like this is just like a very sad way for a brand to die.
Yeah, and I think, sort of coming back to an earlier part of the conversation, like what we're really talking about is Bitcoin is money that takes a lot of effort to produce. And the idea is because it has value on its own, that you're going to be thoughtful about what you trade it for. And you're going to want to trade it for other things that also take effort to produce. So on the one hand, NFTs are a great example. They take almost no effort to produce. And on the other hand, you have like your real world art. Like Bitcoiners want to see real things in the real world, real masterpieces built and funded by this money that has real value too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for this creation of physical work. I think that we need to attract more people who are physically talented. It's hilarious to even say that, but yeah, that can make awesome physical stuff into the space, being selling. And I've said for a long time that for me to ask, for Bitcoin, for my work, like it better be pretty sweet. And, I haven't in my collections, I think all my best work is when I've kind of honored that the most. And the least good Madex stuff is kind of where like the work has kind of lacked for whatever reason. So it's this excellent, like, as I interact with the Bitcoin market as an artist, it's kind of like I have like, it's like a shit test. Like everything I make has to have some standard of quality to it, for it to be worthwhile and for me to like make the sale. So I think it's a really cool market to kind of operate in, because it's like you can't like really get away with selling disposable stuff in Bitcoin. I mean, like I think people have for a long time just because there haven't been like any other options. But now, I mean, like my number one goal with Madex when I kind of entered into this was just like, I'm like not that great. And they're in comparison to some of the guys out there that have the ability to make stuff. Like I feel like I'm very junior in kind of like my skills, but that's just kind of from my place where like what I value in trades and in crafts. And what I wanted was like, okay, well, I'll do the best I can with the materials I have available to me. And I hope it inspires other creators who are insanely more talented than I to come to the Bitcoin market, I guess, come to the Bitcoin marketplace with their creations and their ideas. Like what I'm on this like quest here where like I really just and try to find the path to selling like $50,000 paintings, $100,000 paintings. And, I then can like recycle that cash into like my own creative endeavors with Madex. But then also it's kind of like making a statement out there. I mean, like, okay, of all the negative that happened with like NFTs, not so much the ordinal stuff, but like the NFT stuff, like one thing that was really awesome for me when this was like really firing up at its like prime was you could go to these like NFT listing sites and it was just like an absolute endless kind of pool of creativity. Like it was like there was a lot of stuff that obviously required no effort that was turned into an NFT and kind of released. But if you just sifted through it, there were like a lot of extremely talented creators out there. There is a lot of cool stuff out there. There are a lot of artists who like, they may not understand like why Ethereum is a broken system, but they're extremely creative and they're doing an amazing job. There's a lot of like naivete in it. And that was just awesome to see, is like this explosion of like kind of creative forces. Cause like, again, like the fiat market's like not incentivizing artists to make anything, makes it like a really kind of dark and dead, like, back in the day, if you were like insanely talented at drawing, there was like a whole plethora of career opportunities that existed for that skill. So like you could go into graphic design, you could go into like, you could do graphic novels, you could do comic book art, you could do just like straight up the artist thing. There's just like kind of all these areas that you could work in. And these days, like those don't really exist that much. So as soon as there was like, hey, like there's a whole bunch of money out here that will like pay you for your creative output, there was like a big push in that NFT world where like a lot of people who were just kind of maybe creating in their basement, marketing to nobody, were able to like kind of find an outlet. And so like that was kind of a huge positive, as it brought a lot of people into, or at least gave them like the opportunity to make money for a period of time, like while there was this huge pump happening. And, maybe that was enough for people to just kind of keep going with it or open new doors. But what I want Madex to do is kind of have that sort of same effect where it's like, okay, if I can come out there and be like, okay, here's a collection of 10 paintings. I sell them all for, let's say, $1 million. That's a market signal that goes out to every creative out there that says like, hey, like, here's what I did with my ability and like my talent, and it netted me $1 million. And so like these guys are going to look at that and be like, Bitcoin marketplace gave Madex $1 million for like that. Man, I can do that way better. Maybe I'm going to enter and like, it's just like, I want to you're like, okay, we give it. And this is difficult to do because everyone's in like hodl mentality. That's great. But like, we also, the long-term exit, it's like, yeah, we want to all become crazy rich off this. I understand that lots of people care about that. But big picture, it's like when you have all that money from Bitcoin going, you better hope there's some people who can make really cool, creative, amazing, because like after you buy your third Ferrari, you're kind of just, it's going to do nothing for you. Or like your next cookie cutter, 20,000 square foot mansion. Like who cares, man? You want to spend your money on stuff that's actually sick, that has like care and attention put into it, that has a story, that has a tale, that has like some magic into it. And the only way we're going to have these creative people when that time comes, when Bitcoins are like, let's say $1 million a coin or $10 million a coin or whatever it is like to be funding those creators along the way, so that like the super high performance creators are getting just as fucking rich as everyone else in the Bitcoin community. And like, I'm passionate about improving my skills. Like most of what I dream about is like, oh man, like if I can crush enough sales this year, I'll be able to buy that like $35,000 laser engraver that can just like do things differently than like the tools I have now. It's like, we want like capital to, we want the creative types, the builders, the engineers, the producers, the makers to like be elevating at the same level as like anyone who's like hodling the currency as well. And that's what I think I can achieve by just being like, hey, look, like my skills are like this. And then like I'm banking, like let's say 100 Bitcoins and crushing and like working on different projects. I'm hiring other artists in, I'm building out a studio. I got all kinds of creative stuff rolling out the door. It's like, I'm just like this giant signal that's being like, come and like collaborate with me or like beat me in market competition in like a gallery show. Like I want to see that happening. And so I'm hoping that it's a difficult ship to steer. I literally picked like the most difficult career path possible, but like some big wins for Madex in the Bitcoin space are just going to like drive innovation and creators into the physical space. So like, why did we have all this explosion in the ordinals trash garbage world and the NFT show? It's like, because like major money was like exchanging and moving hands. So you have a big influx of people who are like trying to play the game. And like, if I can like have successes as a physical creator, a physical artist, that's like, hey, look at this. Like, one of the things I'm working on right now is this crazy mechanical whale. It's going to be amazing. And like, when I put that out and it like fetches a high price, like these are the sort of stories that should be broadcasting. It's like, we all need to, if we respect physical creators, we need to make an effort to like promote. If we don't have the money to fund the physical creators, then we have to do our best to help promote those physical creators. So it's like, whatever position you're in, if you're balling, buy stuff from physical creators. If, on your way to becoming ballin', like support the physical creators, and let's like try and drive some energy into the whole space. Because, what I dream of, like, I want to walk into my own studio, having like not knowing anything about me, and like see what I'm up to. And like, a lot of times I tour my studio and like I vicariously get that a little bit, but it's like, I'm really in this to like meet other creators and other producers that can like execute at like a high level and that can just produce stuff that's amazing, because, that's what I think like our world deserves. And, we've lost track of that in this mass produced, made in China, Fiat garbage sort of push that's happened. But like, even if you just look around at like the way like pop culture environments in terms of like the new, whatever your like trendy restaurant in town is, everything's like we're returning to organic anyways. Everything is kind of returning to like these sort of built to last principles. And like a lot of it's like fake because we're kind of like faking it, but you can like, as in like there's still fiat money that's creating these environments. So like the wood's not real, or the plants aren't real or whatever. But it's like, this is obviously coming into demand and people are like seeking out this like, hard to get, hard to find, like hard to replace. I think we just see it even just with like antique stores starting to kind of explode. Like I was in an antique store for a Christmas event couple weeks ago, and like the prices in the store were just like just absurd. I was like, holy shit, I should get into the antique business, because people are tired of like the crap that just fails. Like IKEA used to be a good brand because the stuff that they made was like real hardwood and it was cheap. And like, even though it was cheap and it was IKEA, it didn't last. But like now everything's just like particle board crap and plastic. It's like, there's just nothing sacred anymore. It's all being destroyed. And so like, we really need a huge push back into, handmade, hand produced, or at least, well thought out and like, proper structured materials and, stuff that will last. And, I hope that like, what I want is that Bitcoin to just be like this world where it's like, hey, like we Bitcoiners, like we will fund you, support you, we'll buy your products if they're quality. Because I've talked about this a million times, and so have many others, that like the incentives in Bitcoin are to like buy something that will last you the rest of your life, because you don't ever want to have to spend Bitcoin again. You don't want to have to like be spending Bitcoin every year to replace something that could just be bought once. So I'm hoping like people's attitudes shift, and like, I don't really have like a perspective on like all these guys that are like big whale holders. Like I like don't really know that many of them that operate outside of like the Bitcoin space. And sometimes I think it's all a fantasy that like Bitcoiners want stuff that's like built to last and that doesn't have to be replaced. But on a long enough timeline, I think we're going to get there. And if we can get more makers in the space like that, anyway. That's my long ramble.
Maybe I'd love to just talk a little bit about what inspires you. Your art pulls different themes from sort of things that are happening in the Bitcoin community or in the Bitcoin mind space, however you want to call it. Like what How would you describe what you're working on or your style and what's exciting you right now?
Man, I just want things to just not suck. And it's so exhausting to me that we're in this like era where we have the most interconnectivity ever. We have efficient resource extraction. We have like lots of amazing new technology. We have like, there's just like so many opportunities everywhere for everything we have to be better. And yet it's not, which I think is, a result of obviously broken money. People just like can't build savings accounts anymore. And so everything's got to be cheap. That's kind of bought to maintain life. But like there's got to be, I'm just inspired to be a part of some kind of change that can bring like just authentic, real, built to last product back into the world. Because like, I mean, Bitcoin changed my life in a lot of ways. And like, the first thing that I encountered as soon as I started to have like a little bit of capital means to be able to do stuff is that there's nobody to do the stuff. And anybody who's capable of doing the stuff is massively expensive or way booked out. You got to book them like years in advance because kind of the word is out that they're the capable good ones that are able to do the stuff you want done, and then obviously there's like market demand for that. And some guys have like infinite money. So for me, someone who doesn't yet have infinite money, man, what I would give to just find somebody that can like help me with a couple like renovations around my house that's not an incompetent loser fiatter, it's just impossible to find. Which is so crazy. It's like, no, none of these guys who are capable want small job. There's just like so now I'm just learning how to do everything myself. And like, I can only do so good of a job. And so, I would just love for there to be more skilled laborers, more skilled workers, more people who are able to do stuff, who care about what they do, who like have some ownership and, some love and respect for the work that they call their own. And I don't know how that kind of world is generated, but like, I'm very motivated by that. And, I think a lot of principles in Bitcoin will eventually lead to that. It's just kind of a long road of like people being so focused on price and if there's no awesome stuff to buy, if there's no awesome skilled workers, like it won't matter how high Bitcoin price goes. Like you're still going to be like repairing your kitchen cabinets yourself. So we have to like stop this hodl mentality and like start incentivizing people to become good at, whatever skills they have that they care about. Yeah. So I'm motivated by like my own pursuit of perfection. And I'm motivated by like, please let the work I do stimulate and stoke the flames in other capable executors out there so that over the next 5 years, like when I'm looking like right now, I just collaborated with this guy doing a CNC kind of project. I'm making these founders totems for Madex. They're going to be very cool. And like this guy is extremely skilled, has like 100 CNC machines. Like his company manufactures stuff for like defense contractors and like, oil and gas company. He's like highly skilled production floor and like gets what I'm up to and wants to help with it. I had the idea to hire this person like 8 years ago. Took 8 years to find somebody with the skills, the machinery, and the, I guess, ambition, desire to do it, to make some kind of cool, like artistic vision stuff. And I just think that that's got to change. I think it should take like 2 weeks to find somebody who like is motivated and cares about what they're doing. And that's a long road because, obviously the whole fiat system has to change. But, I hope that like as Bitcoiners, there's a lot of us out there and like, let's do what we can to like stimulate and incentivize like some of these guys to come and like do some good work for us. I don't know if what I'm saying is really clear, but like there is a major shortage of skilled laborers, skilled craftspeople. There's a major shortage of creative thinking. And we're just, we're going to be in so much trouble if we don't start like rewarding these guys who can think outside the box, or have the passion to actually care about the work that they're doing. So like leave big Bitcoin tips, offer Bitcoin all the time. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, we got to put this money that we have to use. And I understand that like a lot of people are new and they're just kind of starting and they haven't like really like reaped, the rewards of Bitcoin. But like, I'm friends with guys who bought their, first coins around like the same era that I did, that like they just will not spend a Bitcoin on anything. It just won't. And like, it's like, dude, you're at like what, like 60,000% return on, return on investment right now. Like pay cabinet maker in Bitcoin. It's like just fuck. I get that it's like generational wealth and all this kind of stuff, but like we gotta put the Bitcoin to work. And we got to stop thinking about number go up, and like everyone's got to work their ass off. And like if your cash flow is crazy, like if your business is crazy, like then you're not going to be worried about like spending the coins because you'll be able to replace them. And so like, we shouldn't be, this is another thing I was going off about. It's like, don't be sitting around waiting for Bitcoin. Like I'm prepared for eternal bear markets. I mean, we got lucky recently, but like when Bitcoin wasn't moving for a long time at like 20K area, I was like, okay, I'm going to structure the rest of my life. I'm going to structure around this. Like Bitcoin is never going up. So what am I going to do about it? How does Madex become like $100 million a year revenue company? What do I got to do to reach that?
Yeah, it's good to have your own plan A and have Bitcoin surprise you instead of being something that keeps you up at night, for sure. For our listeners who want to find some of your stuff, like where's the best way to find your work online?
My website is madex.art, madex.art. I'm sure there'll be a link. That's where I'm kind of hosting everything that I've been up to. And then, my Bitcoin company is bullbitcoin.com, BULL, bitcoin.com. And I'm on Twitter at Spacebull. And I'll just be out here trying to get better at talking on podcasts, making cool stuff, sending Bitcoin signal, and I'm just figuring it out. Like I think that, what I've been encountering a lot lately is people who are new to Bitcoin that want to like get involved in it. And it's like, man, you don't have to do anything totally crazy. You don't have to move fast or like make big steps or whatever. Like just learn it. And that's like the first most important thing. And just learn as much as you can and just keep learning. And like, I think that if you just focus on learning about Bitcoin and learning about primarily, I mean, like Bitcoin is just like the part that leads to like the Austrian economic thinking, that leads to a better life. And like I said in the beginning, the accountability that comes from owning Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. And like just over time, it'll lead you to a position in the world. And, even just doing like whatever you're up to, but accepting Bitcoin, like that's making a contribution. And thanks for having me, Scott. I'm going to improve at speaking on podcasts over time.
You are definitely creating cool stuff in the real world. And I think you have a really good message, man. So I appreciate you coming on to share it with our listeners.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Block Reward. We're trying to do something different here, creating accessible conversations meant for people who aren't obsessed with Bitcoin. If you found this episode informative and engaging, hit that subscribe button to make sure you stay updated with future episodes. Your feedback matters. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to share your reviews and help us with our goal of creating Bitcoin content that is simple and easy to understand. Bitcoin has an important role to play in the future of finance. It will change the way we save, spend, and invest. Discover why Bitcoin offers a game-changing opportunity for forward-thinking employers by visiting blockrewards.ca. Block Rewards' mission is helping Canadian employers implement strategies for integrating Bitcoin into compensation and benefits, supercharge your recruitment and retention strategies, and help your team members plan for the rising cost of living by rewarding their work with the hardest money ever invented. Special thanks to our top sponsor, Paramount Employee Benefits Consulting, Canada's only Bitcoin-forward benefits and pension advisory. For more information, find them at paramountbenefits.ca. Big shout out to Podigy, our production team that makes all this possible, and BMX Escape for producing our music. Bitcoin is an expansive and dense topic many people walk away from early. To Bitcoin enthusiasts looking for that podcast they can share with friends, family, and colleagues, one they'll actually listen to, we hope that is us. The content of these conversations is meant to be provided for information purposes only. Nothing here is investment advice. Bitcoin is a big topic. Be sure to do your own research before making any personal financial decisions. Thanks for listening.